I'm Michael Day, a teacher, nature photographer, and traveler. This video is about exploring and photographing the rich culture of the Khmer people and the mysterious temples at Angkor. At the end of the video, there is a slide with information about my blog and how to contact me. If you'd like to see some other videos, other adventures, hit that little subscribe button on the lower right-hand corner. Thanks for watching. The temples at Angkor in Cambodia are among the most mysterious temples in the world and the showcase for one of the oldest cultures. A few years back, Susan and I spent a fascinating week in the Kingdom of Cambodia, home to the Khmer people, and visited Angkor Wat, the largest religious temple complex in the world. At the time, Susan and I were concluding a delightful cruise up the Mekong River, the world's 12th longest river. I've created another YouTube video describing our cruise up the Mekong. We passed into Cambodia on day 4 of our cruise, approximately 100 miles from where we began at Mai Dao, on the Mekong Delta in Vietnam. Though most of the people today who live on the Mekong Delta are Vietnamese, the Delta is also home to the largest population of Khmers living outside Cambodia. Historically a lowland people living close to the Mekong River, the Khmers are one of the oldest ethnic groups in Southeast Asia, appearing over 4,000 years ago, fishing, cultivating rice, using bronze, and developing an alphabet. The majority of the world's Khmer people live in Cambodia, and they often wear a distinctive piece of clothing, the krama, with many uses. And for those living near water, constructing distinct wooden houses on stilts to withstand the annual flooding of the rivers. At the Mekong border of Vietnam and Cambodia, we were roughly 60 miles from Phnom Penh, capital city of the Kingdom of Cambodia. As capital city and home to the royal palace, Phnom Penh has many attractions and lots of history. Not all good. Between 1975 and 1979, it was also home to the Khmer Rouge, a highly autocratic, xenophobic, and repressive regime, responsible for the deaths of nearly 2 million people, around 25% of Cambodia's total population at the time. Interestingly, Phnom Penh is located at the intersection of 2 rivers, the Mekong and the Tonle Sap. Generally, the Tonle Sap River is fed by Tonle Sap Lake, 75 miles away to the northwest. It is on and near Tonle Sap Lake that our story about the Khmer Empire and its famous temples at Angkor takes place. It is also near the intersection of these 2 rivers that each year a fascinating phenomenon occurs. The flow of water on the Tonle Sap River changes direction. During the rainy season, generally June to November, the Mekong River reverses its flow into Tonle Sap Lake, causing the lake to spread more than 6 times its normal size. These yearly monsoon rains expand the Mekong, pushing excess water up the Tonle Sap River, flooding and surrounding low plains and swelling the lake. As mentioned earlier, the Khmers are one of the oldest ethnic groups in Southeast Asia. By the 7th century, the Khmers began inhabiting territories along the Mekong River. By 802, a Khmer warrior, having successfully led numerous military campaigns, established a large territorial state, took the name King Jayavarman II, and set the foundation of the Angkor period. Nearly 400 years later, in 1177, the Chams, a neighboring people under the command of the Champa king, launched a surprise attack on the Khmer by sailing a fleet of ships up the Tonle Sap River to Lake Tonle Sap during the annual monsoon flooding. So began both a 5-year occupation of the Khmer Empire by the Chams and one of the most romantic and heroic stories ever told, captured beautifully in John Shore's Temple of 1,000 Faces. The major figure of Shore's story is a young Khmer prince, who in this delightful book is named Jayavar. Exiled from his home by the Cham attack, Jayavar organizes and then leads the major resistance, including a dramatic naval battle against the Champa king, depicted on the walls of Bayon Temple. He restores order, and in 1181 becomes King Jayavarman VII. During a long reign of 37 years, Jayavarman engages in numerous construction projects, which include some of the loveliest and mysterious temples at Angkor. Jayavarman marries a devoted young woman, his companion during the Cham resistance, named Ajadavi in Shore's book, who seems to greatly enhance Jayavarman's strong and rather unique devotion to Buddhism, as well as his devotion to and care for his people. Jayavarman VII's building projects include the city of Angkor Thom, his dramatic temple at Bayon, and a pair of temples to honor his parents, Ta Prohm to honor his mother, and Prekan to honor his father. Susan and my time in Angkor began with visits to Jayavarman's 3 major temples, Ta Prohm, Prekan, and Bayon, and ended at the temple of Angkor Wat, constructed earlier in the 12th century during the rule of Suryavarman II, 1113 to 1150. For our visit to the temples of Angkor, we used Jakarta Travel, an award-winning international travel company begun in 2008 in the United Kingdom. They handled both our Vietnam and Cambodia travel arrangements. We booked 2 nights in Siem Reap, the services of a local photographer guide, and a full day use of a tuk-tuk, 2-wheeled carriages pulled by a motorbike. The hotel was the lovely Heritage Suites. Calming grounds, charming staff, relaxing rooms, refreshing outdoor saltwater pool, excellent dining outside, a complimentary massage that was one of the best ever, and a vintage Mercedes to fetch you from the airport. Susan and I are already planning a return visit to Angkor and a much longer stay at Heritage Suites. Day 2 began at 5 a.m. Dutch artist and photographer Eric de Vries and his tuk-tuk driver awaited. For the next 11 hours, we were provided a very personal and private tour of some of Angkor's wonders. Our hotel in Siem Reap was only about 4 miles away from the temple complex of Angkor. More than 700 temples are sprinkled throughout northwestern Cambodia and surrounding Angkor Wat, celebrating achievements of the Khmer Empire, many constructed during the reign of Jayavarman. More than 50 temples are in the Angkor Archaeological Park. A note to self: more time. The visitor to Angkor should plan a minimum of 3 days, the more the better, to explore this area. Our plan was to visit as many temples as we could. They became the 4 temples noted above. After a brief stop to purchase our Angkor pass, we arrived at Ta Prohm, the temple honoring the mother of Jayavarman VII. This was 5:45 a.m. We were the first people to arrive, so initially we had the grounds to ourselves. Delightful. This temple may be best known for the silk cotton trees, some likely over 400 years old, that have their roots in the temple's building blocks, seemingly part of the temple itself. We spent about an hour exploring Ta Prohm, and then drove our tuk-tuk along the outer walls of Angkor Thom, the city built by Jayavarman VII. stopping briefly for a nice morning walk. The time was close to 7 a.m. The sun had risen, and the temperature was still comfortable, between 65 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Then we stopped for a morning coffee and restroom break. Around 8:45, we arrived at our second temple, Prekhan, the temple honoring the father of Jayavarman VII. Here we explored both the grounds and the temple itself, where each of us received a blessing by a resident Buddhist nun. It was here that we were also introduced to the women of Angkor, the lovely Apsara dancers and devatas, the beautiful and divine women depicted in stone on both exterior and interior walls, the sacred ones who protect each of the temples. We next visited the Leper King Terrace, where we walked a thin corridor covered with stone reliefs depicting the Khmer people, perhaps even depicting King Jayavarman VII and his queen. At noon, while others were having lunch, we visited the mysterious temple of Baal and marveled at its exterior sculptures, perhaps depicting the face of the Buddha, perhaps depicting the face of Jayavarman VII. Here, let me plug a superb book by Andre Booth, the Angkor Guidebook, your essential companion to the temples. After extensive research, Booth provides a sense of how the temples likely appeared when constructed. At 2 p.m., we arrived at our final destination, Angkor Wat, and it was hot, high 80s. By now, many tourists had left and were either visiting other temples or calling it a day. Though we missed spending either sunrise or sunset at the temple, we were still treated to the unmistaken majesty of Angkor Wat, including a performance by some actual Apsara dancers. What follows are some photos from our 11-hour visit to the wonderful and mysterious temples of Angkor. At the end of the video, there is a slide with a link to my blog. If you saw a photo you liked and wished a copy, visit my blog at michael-day.org, where you can contact me. The blog address may also be a useful site for those who would like to further examine the link between adult education, wonder, curiosity, adventure, and travel. Happy travels.